Hello, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be discussing thunderstorm activity and severe weather potential for the United States, as well as the tropics around the world. To start off in the United States, we see that there are smaller areas of activity, but that will evolve, especially as we get into the 2 and 3 day range, into a larger area being impacted, especially in the United States. You can follow along right now with what the radar could look like, and right now with the global model, GFS, with the areas that could be impacted, with the blue, of course, being snow, and green with rain and thunderstorms, thunderstorm threat, potential that is, and then the mesoscale showing what the radar could look like. But we'll look at what the Storm Prediction Center has to say on the exact areas with thunderstorm risk. Alright, to start off, we have a cold front that will form and bring impacts to the eastern United States. I want to mention that in our area, especially as you get further east into our area, there's a higher potential for rain and thunderstorms. This cold front will bring a mostly unbroken or somewhat broken line of storms, and it will be moving west to east. This happens in fall often, since we see many cold fronts form. In our area, thunderstorms occur less frequently, and there is more time in between events, bringing thunderstorms and severe weather. But on days of those events, there's often a higher potential for rain and storms, because cold fronts and lines of storms move through. These bring more widespread thunderstorms with those potential lines unbroken if it's stronger, or somewhat broken at times. Line of thunderstorms, that is. But in the summertime, we have more pop-up thunderstorms, but as we get towards the end of summer, we get less of those events, which bring more isolated thunderstorm threats, and more cold fronts, bringing more widespread impacts. I hope that makes sense, but if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Alright, now taking a closer look, we see that after this system, we do have some storminess moving in, and snowfall for the Rockies, as well as snowfall in parts of the northern tier, especially in areas such as Minnesota or North Dakota, going into Wisconsin, and this will be more frequent, of course, as we get further into the fall and closer to winter. On the GFS model, that was the GFS model. On the European model, we see the cold front moving through and bringing widespread or numerous thunderstorms, so we'll be having to watch for that. We could see that there is some snowfall behind the system in Canada, going into Minnesota and Wisconsin. And in that trough, we see that it is negatively tilted, or potential to be negatively tilted. And what that would mean, if that did actually happen, that would mean a higher potential for severe weather, since often with severe weather events, if you have a negatively tilted trough, you get more stronger storms. Alright, taking a look at the total snowfall, we see over time, of course, this moves more into the United States, with at first in Quebec, and then with the cold front, with that low pressure system, we see snow in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and potentially even in Michigan, and in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, moving through Ontario. We also have some snowfall for the Rockies as we get further into this longer range. It's currently the 10th, and this would be October 17th, which is 7 days from now. Alright, looking at the total accumulated precipitation. The European we don't see on the snow, but we do see that there is a lot of rainfall for the eastern United States with this cold front. On the GFS, we see most of the same With the blues, you can see on the right what the exact amounts are, and not a lot of rainfall for the Pacific Northwest, perhaps none at all, but we'll be having to watch for that if we do get some relief. Alright, now looking at the HRRR model, which is a mesoscale model. These mesoscale models show what the radar could look similar to. This will not be what the radar actually looks like, but gives us the general picture of what the impacts could be. To start off, we have some thunderstorms possible, especially as you get into central and southern Florida, and then into Oklahoma, and really in southern Oklahoma, going into the overnight hours of Monday, which is today, going into early Tuesday. We also have thunderstorms in Texas, especially in the central, northern, and western parts of the state. And we also have thunderstorm risks for the northern states of Mexico and the states in the United States of New Mexico and Arizona, especially in the eastern part of Arizona. Alright, also looking at what storminess we could see is some rainfall possible for northern Montana going into southern Alberta and Saskatchewan. And then as we get further into Tuesday, we see the rainfall really spreading into other areas now, going into Missouri, northern and northeastern Oklahoma, going into Arkansas, and spreading further into Illinois. For the NAM 3km or NAM 3 kilometer, we see further into the future, and we see more widespread areas of thunderstorms and storminess with this cold front forming. We could really see some severe weather impacts with this. Looking at a few more models, we see the cold front forming and potentially bringing some stronger storms to the east. And one more model, we see the snowfall for Quebec, and then going into the east and the Midwest, we see thunderstorms developing as we get to Tuesday, especially into Wednesday, going into all the way through the weekend. Alright, now looking at the Storm Prediction Center, today we see a marginal risk for Texas and a large general thunderstorm risk for the Southwest. Then we have thunderstorm risks for northern Montana, north central, and for Minnesota, as well as for Florida, especially in the central and southern portions in the peninsula part of the state. Going into Tuesday, we should first look at what the marginal risk shows. There is just a wind and hail threat, 5% for the same area. So watch for isolated severe thunderstorms there, bringing wind and hail threat mainly, but smaller chances there. Then a large general thunderstorm risk going all the way from Wisconsin down through the southwest, Midwest through the southwest, and then a general thunderstorm risk also for the Gulf Coast, mainly in Florida. This marginal risk that spreads from Oklahoma through Wisconsin, including states Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, and Kansas. We see tornado threat is diminished, as we do see that cold front with the line trying to form, but the wind and hail threat pretty much just in the same area with the 5%, so some isolated thunderstorms possible there. I would not be surprised if we get some slight risks on these days. On Wednesday, we have another marginal risk. This a very large general thunderstorm risk spreading from the entire Gulf Coast on the United States, going through the mid-Atlantic regions up towards the border with North Carolina and Virginia, going all the way into the Midwest and the border with Canada. The marginal risk includes states, the entirety of Kentucky, most of Tennessee, and portions of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, West Virginia, and Ohio. I believe we will have a potential for a slight risk here, and we'll likely have another marginal risk for the coastal Northeast and Mid-Atlantic as we get into day 4 and we get closer towards the weekend.